our speaker is here for the keynote address, Dr. G. Aloysius, Professor G. Aloysius, to guide us on this topic of emancipatory intellectual movement of Phule, Ambedkar, Bhima Bhoi and others. So let's welcome Dr. G. Aloysius, Professor G. Aloysius.
Thanks to all of you. One sincere apology, which will also give an insight of my talk. I really apologize to you that I am unable to speak in India. I seriously believe social sciences discussions should be carried on in one's own language. Only then it will give a participation of all. A vigorous, passionate and committed participation is not possible if you are having a second language like in English, where we try to formulate the question, we try to raise the question and so on and so forth. Secondly, all discussions are philosophical. Why I say philosophical? It has to be distinguished from what is considered religious. Most of our educational scenario is a religious scenario. Somebody speaks from here all the time, bombarding all kinds of, and he has the privilege of saying all stupidity, nonsense and uncontextualized things, and they all will go unchallenged. They'll have more and more answers to what problems? Nobody has any problems. You see, a philosophical occasion, on the other hand, should have more problems and less answers. You see, if you have more answers and less problems, that is a religious discourse. It's a religious discourse. And we struggle hard to move away from that and try to initiate a discussion which is genuinely philosophical. Please, that's why I said this is not a formal keynote address. And I am not usually called for delivering keynote addresses. Try to initiate a discussion where we, all of us, are pounce on each other intellectually and academically, and then try to arrive at some basic consensus of how we should, outside this room, go about conducting our day-to-day life and our professional life. It's not, that doesn't get over with the session is over and that's the end of it. So then one assignment by Kalingamitra Trust or whatever the organization is done, successful, acha sar bhi acha bola. So I'll wait for the next one. You see, academics, we have been, and I don't want to actually use that word academics. This has been used quite often, I guess in a good sense that we should have a systematic, serious thinking on any problem. That is what is called academics. We are all struggling to explain reality, or as an improvement over that, to understand reality. But the point, however, as Marx said, is to change it, change the reality. And that I see it here. Honestly, I see it here. The concern is Orissa. Why Orissa is backward, why Orissa there is no movement, why Orissa there is no intellectual, why all the intellectuals in Orissa are traditional intellectuals, not organic intellectuals. This kind of anxiety and anguish is the starting point. And I see this is the first meeting I ever attended in my two and a half decades of my academic career, which I started from this very hall. From Dr. R.K. Naik said, just looked into the nationalism without a nation. No, I should come over as our Ambedkar chair professor. He said, you have scuttled my PhD also. It's gone. Once I become one professor here, another professor there, and then I thought having written my nationalism without a nation in India, I have completed one set of thinking and I should try to move on to the next. No, but I thought I have just opened the fresh chapter on the whole thing, and rest of my last 20 years, I am not able to move further because the academic assignments and so on, and what I have tried to say it in that book is so different. And where does the difference came from? The difference came from these jungles, northern Orissa, bordering on Jharkhand. You know that Rajkar, Saraikela, and Mahapur, Mayurbhanj, and all this. You ask normal questions about how people are living, how people are making their life, and solving their problems, small little problems, and all that. And that I carried on to the JNU where I went. See, these are the problems we were to. You see, the biggest problem of our academics is, somebody gets admitted in a TIS, for example, or even worse than that, better than that. HCU, or the worst or best, JNU. They try to make themselves so clear of their mind, erase it like a tabula rasa, that I have nothing in my mind clear. And I have been privileged to get admission in these national institutions. I come on that national later. Now they are going to give me real knowledge. JNU. So I try to hug up whatever is there. And then we find for 2-3 years run around without a job here, there and all that. 4th year, 5th year, 6th year we managed to get some job somewhere through like a lottery ticket. From then onwards, it's a routine. Actually, when I got my after the moving from here, I got wandering all over the place, and then I got a job in Jamia. He said, why are you running now? You got a job. Settle down. I got a job so that I can rush more. They're giving me some money so that I can struggle harder and all that. No, relax man. Don't burden the students also. No, I believe in giving 120%, 30% to students and try to make them understand at least 60 or 70%. If the students are capable of understanding 70%, it's not my idea to give them only 50%. Try to pull them up. The point I am making this is what we study in most of our institutions does help in making money, getting a job and making money. And the effect of it is today we see, we are all, and I know a number of Odia guys, who have been my companions, my friends and so on, pushing themselves. Hard worker, quiet hard worker, not politicking, not intriguing, not engaged in something else, but eventually get into a fairly good positions. But because of that, what has happened to Kalahandi and all these areas and all that? No, they stay like that only. How come individuals got emancipated and empowered? A large society is still kind of continues to be the same. And today the anxiety of friends of Jadumani is that somehow we have nothing to do with this. We have to pull it out and then take it out there. Here's the idea. Our life world in our home and hearth and streets and in the small town and in the village area have not been brought into academics. We come as an erased everything and then we are going to gain knowledge and all that. What knowledge you are going to gain? From the very first day of your admission to PhD, you keep on, abhi to admission mila na bhai, to 6 mahina, keep reading and all that. And then finally crisis comes after 2.5 years, 3 years and so on. No, bite kar likho. To 6 mahina mein likh dala. So what he wrote will not be very highly superior to what if he had started writing some 2.5, 3 years ago. Same thing. Except of course some quotations and names and all that brought in. Our life world has to be subjected to critical investigation. Research is nothing but research. But you should want to search. If you don't want to search, you want to find a job. Good. And many of you do know how to do research in order to find a job. So to them I have nothing much to say. See, I have been a regular invitee for this ICSSR methodological course, 10 days they conduct everywhere and all that. No? He said, you want to be a successful scholar or you want to be a good scholar? They are two different things. And there is a small cutting into it. If it is successful scholar, you know you are doing it already by shaking head vertically or shaking head horizontally or raising questions, sir as beautifully explained, as somebody has pointed out already, or Foucault has said, or Levinas has said and all that, raise questions. Then the recognition starts, and that recognition is hopefully carried on to a panel where it comes to recruit people for jobs and all that kind of. But now the concern for Orissa and concern for my own kith and kin, all these guys, they are same everywhere and all that. Odisha is backward, Odisha language is backward, Odisha gods are backward, Odisha everything is backward. Actually, the concern for Bhima Bhoi and Birsa Munda, the whole range of these people, I enumerated some 50 names in my book. The idea was caste. Caste. What came to be understood as caste. From Sanatana Dharma became more concrete as Varnashrama Dharma, and then make actual as caste. No, you are reducing everything to caste. Is Varnashrama Dharma the Oka? I am sure that much Hindi you must know before that. That is Varnashrama, what is God-given place you should maintain. Oh, it's not even, Sanatana Dharma is much higher. But ultimately what hurts in Sanatana Dharma is caste. See? And people are concerned more with that rather than, how the cosmos is determined by general principles and all that. And this is eternal, bothers about that. Now, why is it has not been possible to abolish caste, abolish this? Why? There's something sticking to us and all of us. Indians, caste. Unique Indians. Legacy. What our ancient rishis and our munis have discovered. Ambedkar, Baba Ambedkar, in 1934, you know this, but you may not know the interpretation. I have been always trying to interpret it differently. He wrote, he was invited by the Jatpat Todak Mandal to address and deliver a lecture on caste. So he titled as Annihilation of Caste, and very seriously, he did whatever he did very seriously. That is also sort of created problem for the majority people who are not serious in anything, but except in maintaining their power. So he wrote a wonderful document which is we still kind of revere and read. annihilation of caste and sent it for us. And they said they read through that and then found that some paragraphs will have to be removed out of that. Otherwise it is okay. What are those paragraphs? The paragraphs concerning Brahmanism, Hinduism, etc., etc. Afterwards, and then finally he refused, and then they also refused to invite him and all that. That we know. He started wondering, what is this? This caste problem was like a big thing on the top of his head and so on and so on. So if we are to abolish caste, what that has been pointed out by the Jat-Pat Todak Mandal people, it may require the abolition of Brahmanism. It may also require the abolition of Hinduism. So is it possible? Baba Sahib was a student of John Dewey, the pragmatic philosopher of American. So it is not possible. It's not at all possible. So eventually he gave up the idea of annihilation of caste and more usefully spent his time on finding an honorable place for the so-called lower castes and so on as minorities and by way of reservations on certain things and so on. Okay. Achieve it within the constitution. Baba Sahib has given up the agenda of annihilation of caste. This is unambiguous. I am taking that from that because he found Hinduism cannot be abolished. Hinduism had just come into existence a few years before Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Few years before Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Hinduism came into existence. It is a contribution of the British rulers. It is a contribution of the British rulers. The biggest gift of the British to Indian subcontinent, Hinduism. It has several meanings. Several meanings. It is a spectrum of meanings. And so if you challenge it on one aspect, it can very easily slide into the other. And then respond in the third, object to the fourth, etc. and so on. With all that, it will continue to remain as one of the biggest religions in the country, in the world. Today, when I had been to Edinburgh, on this question, the question of religions, I said, what do you teach here? No, we teach here all the world religions. What are all the world religions? Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Wait a minute, what is this Hinduism? What is that? What is that? Is it religion or politics? No. I object to the definition of religion given by the West and all that. Why should we follow the West? In everything else you can follow the West, but not in this you cannot follow the West. The point I am saying is that Hinduism, which Baba Sahib got frightened, and he wrote the riddles of Hinduism and so many things and so on, came in the process of constructing India. This unification of the Indian subcontinent, political unification of the Indian subcontinent by a select group of people, mostly Brahmanical, took place in the 18th century, 1819. Specifically, the agency is the East India Company. East India Company, we had this bizarre thing called the East India Company ruling over the entire subcontinent, a company, a commercial company. Either you give me money, I don't bother what you do. You keep on giving me money. If somebody objects to you giving money, I will come and support you and then suppress you. Whether there may be tribals, whether there may be low-level tenants and so on and so forth. So this went on for one whole century, from 1757 to 1857. What was the understanding? I give you revenue, I won't interfere. That one principle of non-interference you must have heard about in your studies. Internal affairs. What is this? It's supposed to be internal affairs, constructing how this group of people constructed themselves as rulers. Who came to be constructed themselves as rulers? Another very interesting, very thing. I mean, unfortunately, sociologists, my friends, should be seriously interested in all these kind of things. They find, it is a time when tradition, old age, old ancient regime, what is called, system of ruling in ancient times, got over, and the system of ruling in the new times come out. That's the British modernity now. You cannot anymore solve problems by the use of your sword, muscle power, like kings and chieftains and warriors and so on and so forth. Only many political scientists will say the legitimate use of violence is the state. So with that finishing, so the people who were wielding sword also were delegitimized, made backward. The people who were good in pen pushing, writing, sitting at table, passing orders, they emerged as the rulers. Who are the best organized among them? As mostly the Brahmanical people. Mostly the Brahmanical people in different times. Earlier there was Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Now there is only Brahmanas. And they took over power. All India took over power. The process of political unification of the Indian subcontinent goes along with the another two simultaneous processes of finishing off the Kshatriya groups of people and empowering, ennobling and bringing out the new middle class, so-called new middle class of the Brahmanical groups. Along with that, you also read that what is this India? Somebody speaks, such a chaos. So who can give me an idea? Of course, it's the same old people. You see that what you call the tribes and castes of South India, tribes and castes of North India, tribes and castes of Central India, and all the volumes and volumes written. With the first name, British name, and the second name as a Brahmin name, in collusion with the. So what happens is that this is the idea of India given by this Brahmanical group of people who came into power to the British, and that constituted eventually an idea of India which was so different, which had nothing to do at all with the life world of the mass of people living here in different regions. Because in that same process, we also gave birth to what is called the Hinduism. What are these people's beliefs? And somebody scratched their chundi and brought some old palmera leaves and all that. And then they brought it, and then that guy as he took the Bible, he also took these things together and went to where we all aspire to go, the School of Oriental and African Studies, London, and sat together and wrote all those kind of things, and then came back and then said, this is your religious books. So many, yes, religious books. Much bigger than Bible, much bigger than Quran and all. Yes. Then the 56 inches came, 56 volumes came, 56, the whole thing became like that. Everything has a beginning and the end in those books, Vedas. Past, present, future. Nobody can discover anything new. Science and all that there. And also it goes along with that original idea of Brahmanism. Progress, change, moving forward, all that's not possible. Because your Kundalini is written in the beginning itself. When your birth itself is written what you would be later. You can't change that. But all this, that in the 80s and 90s, Ashish Nandi and a few others, at that time the idea of progress was little bit in the air, progress. As an American imposed agenda, progress. So all these people say, what progress? How can you progress? Human beings are human beings. Human beings as a given, notion of a given. Not achieved, not gained, not struggled and sort of failed or succeeded. No, you are given. Acceptance of the given. So given requires who gives? It's a God. Some God, whatever it is. But then the God also I can manage through mantras. So where is the God? What is the idea of God? All that we can adjust according to the time and circumstances, etc. But more important is that you should accept your life as a given. And so these people, when they found that these are the books they have collected and so on, and so this is what it is. And where is the community I must administer? Either if you are not a Muslim, if you are not a Christian, all these people are to be under the direction, guide and the advice of Brahmins. I said it was never like that in our country. Every caste and every group of people have their own priests, their own pujaris, and their own kind of thing, or their own guys who conduct marriage ceremonies and all that kind of thing. No. If you are neither a Christian nor a Muslim, you are necessarily under the Brahmins because you are a Hindu. Bombay Brahmins are much shrewder. He said, okay, you don't want to come, don't bother. I mean, don't call us, but send us the money. You give us the money, then you conduct whatever you want. But here in the southernmost part of Odisha, in Samba, already actually in Telugu, Chittoor and all that, they said, no, we have never called the Brahmins for all this. And the case went up to Privy Council and all that. They decided, they are right, you don't have to call the Brahmin. That is a very rare case which we keep as a document. These are circulating among themselves. In most other cases, just as a priest, in the Christian priest is to the Christian people, just as the mullahs and maulis are to the Muslims, this entire mass of Indians, known as either Odias, known as this caste, Sambalpurias, or Jharkhandis, or whatever it is, they are all to be known as Hindus. Their religion is Hindus, and Hindus means they are under the Brahmins. And in India we have only Hindus. And the Hindus eat only vegetarianism, vegetarian food. And they are same all over, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, they are same. They talk different tongues which you can understand actually. Everybody can understand everybody in India. Because most of the talk is not a dialogue between equals. It is a one-sided thing. Lord and the servant is a do this. Of course I understand, whatever be the language, I have to do that. You see? So we have a Sahitya Academy which has its philosophy which says India has one language spoken and written differently. Wow. What a discovery. No? So we have a new philosophy of language which is not in anywhere else in any part of the world. Language determines your culture, language determines your worldview, language constructs your historical development. It's, no, in India all these don't mean anything at all. All are same with everybody and so on. So we have a new India, an India which is basically a Brahminical India, which has been known in all the Rig Veda and other things and so on, where Brahmins were different or one side of people, the undifferentiated India, undifferentiated, unequal, what do you call, there is no unevenness, everybody is like that, and they will struggle whatever way and all that they do there. And they all should be unified under the new political unification. The utter disaster of this process is Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan. Is it Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan? Now that same project is continued. Thanks to the present regime, we are so happy because it helps us to understand the logic behind all this. There's the earlier regimes were some sort of camouflaging, little wishy-washy, little kind of hesitance, but this regime is very plain. This is if you accept it. If you, Gandhi, long ago I said, if you say you are a Hindu, sir, I don't say I am a Hindu. No, you have to say no other way, because you are neither a Christian nor a Muslim. If you say you are a Hindu, you have to abide by the Vedas and Vedas. Veda is a differentiation, caste, and Vedas. So better abide by the Vedas and Vedas. That means the Brahmanical view. And you see, this is not. This has been very shrewdly observed by history students of Northern. Bailey, couple of people, Chris Bailey and Susan Bailey. They said there have been in the subcontinent so many ways and views of life, and most of them were non-Brahmanical and anti-Brahmanical, or simply never cared for Brahmanical. They had their own philosophical systems. But after this 1 century of the commercial rule, the whole thing collapsed, and then India has been constructed, brought into effect, actually, by the Brahmanical groups becoming very dominant, and their way and view of life came to be expressed through the North Indian agencies like Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan. Now, if such a thing, how could Baba Sahib, this is a foundation here of India. Caste could be abolished. In the West also there was something like caste. In the earlier times, it was called estate, E-S-T-A-T-E, estate. Now, those who pray, oratorus in Latin, those who pray, that means the church people and all that. Bellatorus, those guys who fight, that is the kings, the warriors, knights and all that. Servatorus, that is those who serve, people, ordinary people. There are very rather strict distinctions between all these. It was in the Christmas time they had this custom of dancing. They used to tie ropes in between so that one doesn't get mixed up with the other. And many even suggested this last guys, they don't have souls. Only the higher groups only have souls. And one cannot become, now like today, anybody can become a priest or a bishop, provided one goes through the training. But earlier, no, it's limited to certain families. It is certain families and so on. So they make contributions, build churches and so on. One of their sons become bishops and so on. It was a traditional, but all that went the time of the French Revolution and the Enlightenment, new philosophy and all. It's the same Indo-Aryan. And they added the Shudras as the fourth caste. That's all. Now, in the wake of modernity, which through the agency of the British, because of the cruel and the kind of weird kind of modernity that came through colonial empire, the whole thing reverted back. Reverted back to what Brahmins thought it was always there. We were always like this, Sanatana. If you remember, all must be playing with the YouTube shorts, sending it upward. You will find a lot of things about Hinduism. All of them you will find ancient India, mysterious India, exotic India, unbelievable India. Scientists are grappling with this idea of India, of some temple somewhere doing something and all that kind of thing. Where is this? Where do we find all this? Hinduism is not ancient at all. Legitimate ancient religion, and if there was something, it was a Buddhism, Jainism and all that. It was when all these things declined then after the 6th, 7th century, the Shankaracharya and all that became. It's only medieval time Hinduism. It's not, there's nothing ancient in Hinduism. But then you come into power and the British is handed over to you and you have an unchallenged mega concepts of Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan and so on, and you are given power, in charge of the entire Indian subcontinent, whom with any way you can reorganize. So this is a process of Brahmanical Hinduism, and it started the unification of Indian subcontinent. I insist on this unification of subcontinent for your consideration. Because today you will find that India unified is the single sacrosanct aspect of so-called Indian nationalism. And you become anti-national if you anywhere challenge India is not one, or you should not give to Pakistan. Pakistan only, because others can come and take it, like you can't do anything about it. It's Pakistan or Sri Lanka or some Burma. The single thing is non-negotiable because the Brahmins came into their power at the unification. At the very unification. Were there no Brahmins before? Of course there were Odia Brahmins. Scattered India, scattered Brahminism, scattered caste things were all there. But these were not considered as being very dominant. Scattered Brahminism, particularly in Orissa, is no challenge to power. They said these fellows are they interested in rituals and some religious stuff and all that. So they get included here and all. Because mostly this is a warrior group and a tribal group and not tribal, non-caste communities. And sociologists, N.K. Bose and all that, they developed, it seems, from tribe to caste. This is the root of development. No, become caste is not a development, it's a degradation. Now all these things are managed by what is called ideology, hegemony and discourse, which is the proper function of all of us assembled here. To create counter-hegemony, to create counter-ideology, to create counter-discourses. But we all succumbed and repeated, extended, perpetuated, promoted and stabilized what the government gave us. This is our, because government is paisa there. Government is the money one giving us money. Well and good. Everybody has to struggle to earn livelihood and you find livelihood. That I have no problem with that. But to reduce the entire life and the situation of some person like that, okay, when you. And this is what is boomeranging now. How do you arrive at Hindi as a majority language? Today it was said earlier, 68 mutually intelligible languages are called Hindi. 68 mutually intelligible, the entire North India, Cowbelt is Hindi. They tried to coax it and then they arrived at a situation by which they said 42%. But suddenly the Punjabis found they cheated us and then they included us because at that time the RSS and the problem of Pakistan, all that, give Hindi. So then it became like that. What happens is that slowly people started slipping off all this, and then we find some 32 or 35 numbers, including a very strong component called the Bhojpuriya component, still included as a Hindi. It's a dialect. What is a dialect? What is a language? These guys have been last 2000 years, they have been there, Bhojpuri guys. I listen to their songs and their performances, artistic thing. All are like an underground, is circulated among themselves. Now their negotiation is going on for removing them, but they said no, if you give you out as a separate language, there is nothing else left in India. So we can't do that. Now, Hindu is, as I said, it's much worse than that. Now, because of all this, India is one vertically, and the top is the Brahmins and this. So we finally calculated that 85% of the Indian population is backward. We have been living, before you all came, we have been living for 2000 years, managing our problems, solving our problems, producing things, feeding everybody. But now you are backward. I am backward to whom? Please come forward. Socially backward. Odia is not even a language. It's only a dialect. And that is the pressure from the north. From the south, these fellows are moneyed fellows, what you call the Telugus. So they were pressurizing that you fellows are all just farmers and all that, we have got money. And in the west, these guys were saying, no, you are a Hindi man, you come to our with us. Now there is a war relentlessly waged for 100 years to bring about an identity of Odisha and identity of Odia. What more do you want? What more do you want? In 1936, it became the first linguistic province in the subcontinent. Before, all others were all sleeping and they were wondering what is that and all that. These ones are a consciousness. Linguistic consciousness depends on the specific philosophy that language determines your culture, your worldview, your beliefs, your philosophy, your commitment. Now 1936, this is Odia nationalism, they try to. So they have constructed Odia nationalism. But it is cultural nationalism. I see today, you see a lot of cultural artifacts, symbols everywhere. But well maintained, many of them. It's not like, when somebody else spat on that or some cow dung is thrown and all that kind of thing. But it is only culture, symbols. What about the political nationalism? Which Jadoo and company feel that it has not emerged in Odisha. They have only what you call Bhima Bhoi. Bhima Bhoi today is a terrible situation they have. I've been to Joranda. It is not the Bhima Bhoi whom we read about, I talked to one monk and all that. Is that people say that there is some kind of lot of similarity between Aloysius and Buddhism and all that. And that monk was offended. No, this is purely Odia stuff. Nothing to do with Buddhism, because after Buddhism it comes rationalism, secularism and all that, equality and all that. No, it's a pure Odia. Yeah, but finally, of course, you also said it is Odia invention. Still within the cultural nationalism. It will be only like this. It was only like that, not only in Odisha, everywhere. And that is the main question of caste also. Caste is a point of culture or power? Is in the discourse of culture or power? All the guys who are suffering from caste will say, it is power, the discrimination and deprivation of power. All the guys who are enjoying caste will say, no, it's not a cultural scenario. Cultural. Culture and power. There is a one small booklet outside, culture and power. All cultures will be seen in modern times as power differentials. Power differentials. I'll give you a small, silly example, very silly. But then I insist on doing that because it comes very clearly. There are 3 chairs. 4 guys come. And then the guy come ordinarily, they don't look at others and all, they just come and occupy. So what does the one man do? He looks here and there and all that. He said nobody is. So he goes and sits that side or this side and ground on the floor. Now I ask you a question. Next day, the same 4 people come and there are only 3 chairs. There are statistics, probabilities and all. Who has the probability of sitting on the floor today? You know, you simply don't articulate. It's the same guy who sat on the floor. He is less and not as well motivated as the other guy sitting on the chair. So I said, looks here and there and all. And the third day, even if he happens to come first, he goes straight and sits where? On the floor. And after a few days, someone comes, why 3 of you are sitting on the chair and you are sitting on the... No, it's custom. It is our custom and it's our tradition. Culture. Reified discriminatory power is called culture. Reified discriminatory power is called culture. We can't all the time be fighting. Then he will say, no sir, I cannot sit on the chair, it is not like this, like that, so I sit down and all. I sit comfortably in the ground, I don't sit comfortably in the chair. And a lot of other explanations and things like that come on. In Manipur, there is nobody in Manipur. In Manipur, only the men eat pork, women don't eat pork. That's all the Brahmins could control, do that. They could only mesmerize the women. And in many families we have that women don't eat meat and men eat meat. Why? Meat is not easily available, only a little bit is come and then it's cooked, and then when it is cooked, the men of the house don't go away anywhere, they sit completely standing around, sitting around, going into the kitchen and all that, cooking and all that. And once it starts cooking, once it's served, then he sits and eats and all that. And he eats with such gusto and interest. Then the lady of the house says, no, let him eat. So he puts aside some for the next meal also. Slowly it becomes like that, what if I don't eat meat, my man eats meat, it's okay. Anyway, he does the hard work outside and all that. Women don't eat meat. That's our culture, that is our culture. What is this culture? I will be coming to application of Odisha later. See, I was here near Sarakela, the northern part of Odisha, celebrating with them what we call the biggest celebration, Maghe. Maghe celebration, there is a village pujari goes and keeps some cock and all that and mumbles something which is mostly in Odia. Because they don't have any sacred things in their language. Their sacredness is limited to the knowledge and the recital of Odia language. And there are 2-3 women, they are supposed to remove their upper garment and stand like this. And then this guy goes on and all that. And then one of these ladies came, they got tired in the sun and then came back. He said, oh, you come back, puja is going on. Hot puja is so sun and I feel so hot and I cannot stand like this. Bad enough. Then after that, they cooked the cock. And it was served only for men. I was sitting with men. So I was also given some food. And then across, the women were sitting and eating, and my partner also was sitting there and eating. And they were not given. And here I asked, why are they not given to the women? Now this fellow became very serious and religious. You know, in those days, our ancestors, Munu Hopo, they went and tore the tiger, his jaws, and then retrieved the jungle, and then cultivated it, and then this all men's work. Now my partner sitting there across, incidentally, she is the one who popularized critical caste. She asked her neighbor, "हम लोग को क्यों नहीं देता है?" So the old lady sitting next to him, he said, "These fellows are greedy fellows. they make some stories, some change, for sharing, so they eat it up themselves. This is culture. For some who are privileged, this is a very serious thing, very divine thing, given thing, which cannot be changed. But for the underdog who suffers from that, who loses from that, who is discriminated against, this looks, you are carrying something outdated here, throw it out and change it." Every culture has both these aspects, resistance and counter-resistance, power and resistance. Now don't come and tell me Odia doesn't have that history. Long ago, the Chinese went to study America, and then they brought back the Statue of Liberty in China, and then they put it. "Oh, why are you doing this? Bringing from there?" Because in China we don't have this tradition of resistance. What nonsense! What is the idea of culture? Unpack culture, rationalize culture. Then you find many of the practices are discriminatory political practices, forgotten long ago. We never bothered about that. And more important problems came up, and so this is. So when you remember that, review culture, all of us review culture in modernity. All of us review culture, construct only culture. Nothing was like that exactly long ago. It's all our constructions. And we will construct it as a Sanatan Dharma. It has been for ages like that, and everything was smooth, and everybody accepted one's place. And all. No, it was always a struggle over there. We didn't succeed, we failed in all these efforts. And who writes history? Only who succeeded only writes history. So all these things are not part of history. You see? Therefore, the challenge of people who are trying to create political nationalism of Odia, review Odia history, has to come up with something all the time, but not keep it endlessly repeating Bhima Bhoi. Bhima Bhoi is certainly something valuable. I know a problem with that. But Sudramuni, Sarla Das, Achyutananda Das, Panchakarya, Panchasaka. And then there are other various ways of exploring history. Come up with and construct. It is all construction. And construction is part of counter ideology, and ideology is part of the struggle to defeat the dominance. In some places there are certain obvious things, Tamil Nadu, Bombay, and a few places and all that. So they have anti-caste resistance, we don't have any anti-caste. Please don't say that. Please don't say that. You have such a multiplicity of history. You have a much wider history of solving problems without bringing in caste, without constructing so many things. And the Mahabharata and Ramayana written by the 15th, 16th century in Odisha. The beginnings of Odia literature, simply because it has a certain Brahmanical elements, you don't throw the whole thing. This is a starting point for our struggle. In so many ways, already Periyar, for example, pointed out the difference between Tulsidas Ramayana and what is the other guy? Valmiki Ramayana. He realized the whole thing, and Valmiki Ramayana, this is Rama is a second-rate, third-rate local chieftain, and is celebrated in the Tulsidas Ramayana. It is all the winning and the marching forward intellectual group that constructs history. And you have enough and more materials here. Enough and more materials here. But the problem is, we caught up something called Hindustan. We define ourselves Hindus. Hey, are you a Hindu? You may a little bit, but then say yes. We say, no, I am a Odia. What do you want to know? You want to know my religion? Once in a year I go to Jagannath. That's all my religion. And then maybe what you call Gurdev, the family deity, little bit here and there. That's all. No. Religion is everything. Religiosity should cover the entire life. Everything you should look at it from only religion point of view. This is a Brahmanical thing which came popular only in the 18th, 19th century. What was celebrated once a year came to be celebrated every month. What was celebrated for one day came to be celebrated for 3 days. What was celebrated for 3 days came to be celebrated for 7 days. And everything should be looked at from a religious point of view. And to this, I find the Odia people have nothing to do with this. Hey, they have something to do. Yeah, you do it, and that's the end of it. The rest is a struggle for our livelihoods, a struggle for how to manage problems and all that. No, there is a way of managing problems religiously. According to the only it has to be done. All these things came only in the 19th century. You know that Kumbh Mela is the creation of the colonial people, no? The ancient Sanatan Kumbh Mela. You see, to challenge all this, to demask all that, and that is a primary task after enabling and ennobling the Odia. Withdraw from all this as a intellectual task I am sort of assigning to an intellectual movement of Kalingamitra Trust or Ambedkar organization. The best of what Ambedkar said in his Buddhism was 22 vows. 22 vows. And many of them are negative only. I don't accept this, I don't accept that. Withdraw from this, calling yourself non-problematically accepting yourself as a Hindu. You want to know my religion? My specific religion is I belong to the Bhima Bhoi sect. I go occasionally there. I go to Jagannath. I go to Durga Mata. I go to the Balaji. All these were pre-modern, historically developed, mobilizing the whole of the ethnic group. Such a homogeneous group, where would you have in India, like you? I never addressed a single ethnic group like this. I am so proud of that. This homogeneity in thinking is a basic component of development. Basic component. If Tamil Nadu and Kerala has done a little bit, that is simply because everybody speaks Kerala there, everybody speaks Tamil there. Homogeneity in ethnicity is a foundation for development. So standardize Odia, modernize, these are all tasks for intellectual movement. How do I standardize Odia? How do I include it? You see, for a particular word, what do you say in Sambalpur? What do you say in Katakia? What do you say in the north? What do you say in the south? All these constitute to Odia by this is what. So Odia is thesaurus. We build a thesaurus for Odia, in which not only the words of Sambalpur and Katak and Rourkela are included. By including these words, you are including those persons and groups and also of the. Why do you read a Benedict Anderson's Imagined Community? No, it is not to be just finished with that after giving the paper. This is to say, how is it to be done here? Standardization, secularization. de-link religion from language from religion. These are all very easy and very many times you are doing this in a day-to-day life. Doing this. But scientifically make it is a task of the research group. You see? Then only things move. No sir, I am a Sambalpuriya. Now for the last 80 years also you have been learning Hindi, Odia. And Odia people peculiarly are very hospitable people. I don't know why still our tribals are moving downward to Odisha. They said we feel more comfortable here rather than Bihar. I mean, what was Bihar? Historically, you have developed certain good qualities. Think about all these and nurture them and don't lose them in that rude, uncouth, something called the Indian. This is bad enough. I am not against India. India has got into its structure and all that. And the discussion about India is mostly carried out in terms of political science, sovereignty. So you want to be separate and all that kind. No, I want to nurture a regional culture which has been developing for thousands of years, and that is what should be modernized. That is what should be enabled and ennobled. And if you do it for Odisha, and if people do it for different regions, then you have a modern India where Indian unity will be strengthened on the basis of egalitarian dialogue and fellowship. It is, see that in cultural nationalism, similarity is a core point. Everybody looks similar. You see? But in political nationalism, everybody becomes equal to one another. And that's where in that context we get Bhima Bhoi, Birsa Munda, Ambedkar, of course, certainly Ambedkar and all that comes into the picture. A lot of work has been already done in bringing up, we have already on the platter Odia cultural base. But this needs to be modernized, this needs to be secularized, this needs to be rationalized. There's nothing divine about it. It's all for human beings, for their progress, life, livelihood, etc., and all that. So you construct a political nationalism of Odia nationalism. Whether it goes and counters what? Hindi nationalism, Hindu nationalism, it needs to be countered. Thereby, does India break? Not necessarily. Sovereignty is a small thing which is political science people are obsessed with. Most people may not want to go to that level. But they want to have a fraternal exchange with everybody. It's not we are backward people. If 85% of the people in a country are backward people, what kind of country is that? You cannot erase history. Odia had at least more than 1,000 years of known history. And so are other linguistic groups. You cannot suddenly say this is all, nothing is all only Hindu India. No. How you people live, how you people worship, how you people think, how you people solve problems are different. And that difference is to be nurtured. India is a diversity in unity. India is a diversity in unity. Unity is underlying, taken for granted, which even Buddha refused to disturb. He said Dhamma should be taught all in their own languages. But now suddenly you imagine that India's unity lies overhead. Then chaos. Chaos, exclusion, distortion. JNU is better than this. What happened to all our Utkal University and Sambalpur University? Very young. This is a mass of people, Odia people studying. Now what I am calling for is entirely a different vision of Indian history, Indian culture, how it came into modernity, how it refused to come into modernity, and we should contribute in a particular stance from taking from there. There are a lot of several other things in general, also particular about academics, which you can talk later on, and so on and so forth. Now, is it time already? I must have exhausted. Please raise objections and queries and make it into a colloquium.